Hello everyone, my name is Colin Sang. I am a backend developer at Afristech International, and today I'm going to take you through backend development, and I'll be using Java language. There are several other languages you can use for backend development, but I prefer for this course I'll use Java to take you through. But before we start on its development, I'll first take you through the introduction of Java, its terminologies and its history, the requirements, and all those stuffs that are needed for a fully functional Java program to run. And before learning Java, one must be familiar with some common terms of Java. For example, the Java Virtual Machine, the JVM, which is generally referred to as JVM actually. There are three execution phases of a program. And the first phase is a written program, then there is compiled, and finally running a program. Writing a program is done by a programmer like you, me, and any other. Okay, yeah, like that, you and me. And the compilation is done by Java C compiler, which is primarily Java compiler included inside the Java development kit, the JDK. It takes the Java program as input and generates bytecode as the output. In the running phase of a program, that's the third step I had mentioned previously, JVM executes the bytecode that was generated by the compiler. And those are the three main steps of Java programming all the way to execution. Now we have understood the functions of a Java virtual machine, and that's to execute the bytecode produced by the compiler. And each operating system out there have different JVM, but the output they produce after the execution of the bytecode is the same across all the operating systems. This is why Java is known as a platform independent language. The second thing you should know is bytecode in the development process. And as discussed before, Java C compiler over JDK compiles the Java source code to bytecode so it can be executed by the JVM. And it's saved as with an extension of a .class file used by the compiler. The third thing you should know is a JDK. While we were using the term JDK, when we learned about JVM, so as the name suggests, it's a complete Java development kit, including everything, that's compiler, Java runtime, environment, the Java debuggers, Java docs, and etc. etc. For a program to execute in Java, you will need to install a JDK on our computer in order to create, compile, and run a program. And then the JRE I had mentioned, the Java runtime environment. Installation on our computers allows the Java program to run. However, we cannot compile it. JRE includes a browser, JVM, and applet supports, and other plugins. Then there's garbage collector. In Java, programmers can't delete the objects. You'll learn about the objects later. And to delete or recollect that memory, the JVM has a program called garbage collector. And then class path is another terminology that you are supposed to know. The class path is a file path where the Java runtime and the Java compiler looks for .class file, the compiled Java source code, in order to load it. And by default, the JDK provides many libraries. If you want to include external libraries, they should be added to the class path. Then there are main features of Java that you should know. First feature of Java as a language is that it's a platform independent. The compiler will convert the source code to byte code, and then the JVM takes over, executes it, and the bytecode that was generated by the compiler, and this bytecode can run on any platform, be it any OS, not OX. And it means that if we compile a program on Windows, then we can run it on Linux, Mac, and all the way around. And then the second feature is that Java is object-oriented programming language. It organizes the program in the terms of collection of objects, and each of which they represent an instance of every class. There are four main concepts of an OOP, which is object-oriented programming. The first concept is abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. I'll explain them later. And Java is simple. That's another feature. It does not have a lot of complex features like pointers, operators, overloading, multiple inheritances, or explicit memory allocation compared to the previous languages, the older ones like C, C++, etc. Java is robust as another feature. It is developed in such a way that it puts a lot of effort into checking for errors as early as possible. It's secured is another feature of Java. We don't have pointers, so we cannot access an out of boundary. Those are terms. Okay, the term array, I'll explain to you what it means later on during the course. And if you try to access the out of bound array, it will throw you an array index. It's out of bound. It's an exception. Exception will be thrown. And another feature of Java is that it's distributed. We can create a distributed application using Java. It allows multi-threading. Java again is portable. Portable means, as we know, Java code is written in one machine and can be run on the other machine or another machine. It's a language of high performance. Java architecture is defined in such a way that it reduces the overhead during the runtime. And at some time, Java uses just-in-time compiler, where the compiler compiles the code on demand basis. Java is dynamic and flexible. Java, being a completely object-oriented, gives us the flexibility to add classes, new methods to the existing classes, and even create new classes through the subclass. Java allows for sandbox execution. Java program run in a separate space that allows users to execute the application without affecting any underlying system. with help of a bytecode verifier. Another feature of Java is that it's a write once, write anywhere language. Another feature is that the power of compilation and interpretation. Most languages are designed for the purpose either they are compiled languages or they are interpreted languages, but Java integrates a rising enormous power as Java compiler compiles the source code to byte and the JVM executes it. Okay, sorry for that. Now I'm going to write you an example to explain what I mean. And writing a Java source code, you will need an IDE. IDE means an integrated development environment. There are several IDEs like NetBeans, the Eclipse, IntelliJ, and many others. In my case, I'm going to use the IntelliJ. So I'm sorry I created this package. And this Java class, I'm going to place it inside the source folder. The package I named it, or the folder I named it Luna, and we can name it anything. I can call it luna.java. It will create this source file for Java. You will import a java.io. Import everything. The asterisk means import everything. This is just but simple example for now before I go deep and explain more. So in every primary class of a Java, there should be a main class. I'll create a main class. So it's a public static function and it returns nothing actually, so I give it void, and it carries arguments. I'll call it string as an array. All these I'm going to explain later, so be patient. This is my main method, and main method is the main actually the primary path to all those functions and classes written in the project. So the first thing the Java program will look for is a class which has the main function. In my case, this is an example. The main class is found in Luna class. So I'll do a simple print, which is system.out.print, and probably I say welcome to my first Java class, and save. Now this is my simple Java introduction code to coding, and the main purpose of this class is just to print a message which is welcome to my first Java. Later on I'm going to explain to you what this means, the string, class, the meaning of all those, but take note of this structure of writing a code. Now to compile it, I'm just going to use a straightforward compilation method, which is right clicking on the file itself and running. Then we'll see this message shall be written on the console of the IDE. So I'll right click and then run the main. So if I run, you'll notice this building. So the compiler is trying to convert it, to compile it. So it's completed compiling it, and here is the message: welcome to my first Java class. So the message I'd written there. Okay, so the basic Java syntax I'm going to explain to you. Java program is a collection of objects, and these objects communicate through methods, method calls, and to each other to work together. And I'm going to take you through brief explanation of this. There is a term by the name class. It's a Java terminology, and a class is a plan or a blueprint of an instance. It's a blueprint of an instance of a object, class object, and it can be defined as a template describing the data and behavior associated with its own instance. Then there is a term, allow me to write it just here. So you've known about a term known as class. There is also a terminology by the name object. This is what you should be knowing. And object is an instance of a class. It is an entity that has a state or a behavior. Another terminology that you should know is a method. A method is a behavior of an object. I'll later on give you examples to expound on it more. So you've known here that this is an instance. An object is an instance of a class. This is the behavior of the object. And then another terminology is instance. Instance variables. Now, instance variables, every object has its own unique set of instances. And the state of an object is generally created by the values that are assigned to these instance variables. And you are going to know more about it later, as I'm just introducing these terminologies to you. Then there is comments in Java. Comments in Java there are several types of comments, like expounding or explaining on a certain function you want to write. And comments in Java, there is a single line comment and multiple line comment. A single line comment is shown or done by 2 forward slash or single line. That's for single line. Like now I can write that such and give it system.out.print. So I'll have commented on this and it cannot be executed. It's only for a single line. Then there's for multiple line comment, and it's you can do it by slash asterisk your data and then close by asterisk and slash as well. This you can comment on several lines of codes or comments, or give it a paragraph. During commenting, it will just give a very long list of, it's a block comment actually. Then there is another term which is source file name. A source file name is a file that exactly matches the public class name. For example, in our case, the source file is Luna and its class is Luna. So the source file of this source or of this class is luna.java. The source file ends with a .java extension and it's easy to notice. So Luna, it has a .java extension. And then another thing you should know about Java is that it's case sensitive. Java is a case sensitive language, which means there is difference between AB, a variable by the name AB, is AB, just giving an example for several identifiers. Probably just giving several. So this identifier is different from this, it's different from this small case, it's different from this. And then okay, sorry for that, I can just say identifier for those are identifiers. They're different from each other in Java. Another terminology you should know are the class names. The class names. In Java, the first letter of the class should be uppercase. You will never write a class in Java in a lowercase, or it's discouraged generally. It's not the normal standard of Java. If several words are used to form a name of a class, then each inner word's first letter should be uppercase. You should separating them with underscore are also allowed, but it's never recommended. Also allowed are numbers, currency symbols, although the letter are also discouraged because they are used for special purposes. So I'll give you an example. I can say class Luna. This is right. That's a right way of naming a class. If I say class small or lowercase Luna, this is right, or it's valid, it's right, but you should know that it's discouraged. It's discouraged. Let me comment them. Another syntax, I can say, I'll duplicate this just for time. I can start with a number, Luna. It's invalid, and it's discouraged as well. It's not even discouraged, it's just invalid. If I write Luna but with a number in between, it's a valid class. It's okay. If I use a symbol before, I can say $. This is invalid. You can never use that to name a class. So, and several other ways. When you get to know more about Java, you'll realize there are several other restrictions or rules of Java. So I had there's another terminology which is public static void main with its parameters, and this is a main method of a class. It's the main entry point into a Java program. This is where the processing begins. Also, allowed is the signature, the way it is. It's allowed to be that way. The method names is another thing I wanted to share. Okay, it's the 9th terminology. Method name. All these are Java rules you are supposed to know before starting a Java program or coding using Java. Then all the method names should start with lowercase. That's a rule. Then if several words are used to form a name of a method, then each first letter of the inner words should be uppercase or separated by an underscore. Then the 10th terminology are the identifiers. Identifiers in Java. An identifier are the names of the variables. I can say local variables, instances, and class variables, as well as labels, but also the names for classes, packages, modules, and methods. Then all the Unicode characters are allowed, they are valid, and not just the ASCII subsets. So all identifiers can begin with a letter, a currency symbol, or an underscore. You are free to use that. Then the first character of an identifier can be followed by the combination of other letters, digits, currency symbols, etc. Then there is a static final identifier. It should be in an uppercase. Then most importantly, identifiers are case sensitive. As I told you before, that Java, everything is case sensitive and it's different from each other. Each variable with similar name but different case, they're different from each other. Then a keyword cannot be used as an identifier. Keywords are like this: class, the word class, the word final, the word static. Within the course, I'll give you the list. Okay, not all, but most of the keywords, because there are myriads. There are several of them. Another thing you should know about in Java is white spacing. A line containing only white spaces, possibly with a comment, is known as a blank line, and Java compiler will totally ignore it. Then the access modifiers. Okay, that failed. Access modifiers. They are the modifiers control the scope of a class or a method, and these can include terms like default. Already it's a global name, I can say. It's a keyword in Java, the default. There is another one, public, still a keyword, so you should take note of all these keywords. You will come across them later when you start doing your coding or understanding more on Java. There is protected sorry, and private. These are access modifiers in Java, so I'll comment them out. Okay, and another thing you should know about Java are the keywords. I cannot give you all of them. You should know, you go and research more on them. There are thousands of them, and all these are the requirements that you're supposed to know in Java. Sorry for that. There is another thing you're supposed to know in Java, and that is variable declarations in Java. So allow me to use this main class. Here, to declare a variable, you will need to specify the type and leave at least one space, then the name of the variable, and the end of the line you must add a semicolon. Java uses the keywords, and take note, Java uses keywords in naming variables. Example is int. I can say int int sum or a number. This int means it's an integer, and it's a primitive declaration, since it's underscore int not complete, it's a primitive method of declaring a variable. Then there is integer. You can say integer someone to make it different from the int sum. The two have the same function, they are similar, but the second one is declared using a class name of an int. It's not a primitive way of declaring it. So this stands for an integer or a number, a full integer, a variable. So whatever shall be assigned here should never be a string, should never be any character, but a complete number from 0 all the way to 9. So these are complete numbers, it's not a decimal. Same case to that one. Another one is float. This primitive, so I can say float sum again, but let me give it a unique name, sum float. A floating number is a number that has a decimal it has a decimal place, a decimal point, or can carry, so I can say maybe 0.5, 0.5. Okay, to declare another float or a float kind of variable but using the unprimitive way, you can just call a class float, call it score, end it with a semicolon, and okay. So to declare a string kind of variable, I'll use the term string. String, maybe string name, give it name, and there is another double, you can say amount. This takes for most of the time it's the currency value. It's more of the same with the float, but it's for double precision numbers. Okay, there is and okay, there are several, so I can say maybe boolean, a boolean kind of status. This takes a boolean assignment, so like it's either true or false. So when declaring that, it will only take true or false arguments. not arguments, sorry, the values, true or false, 0 or 1. And there are special ones, like I can have an array. Okay, so sorry, I have not finished this. Char kind of variable is for Unicode characters. So you can say Unicode. These are for Unicode characters. There is byte, and these are for the signed integer. Another one is short. This is the same as the byte, it's for signed integer as well. This long, okay, you'll know all these. Let me give you a few more description of it, but you've known that declaring a variable is just an identifier, the name, close with a semicolon. If there is a need to assign a value, then simply put an equal sign, for example equal, maybe with a value. So long data type is still for signed integer. It's for signed integer. There is, okay, the floats I had given you, those are the for floating points. They're for floating points. Same case, the floating points are the double, the float, and many more. So guys, from this, like now, programming starts the moment you understand variable declarations. There are more, so a lot. So there are arrays, there are lists, which are the same as arrays, lists, linked lists. Okay, this I can say is an advanced, but you should know the mentioned data types first. And to that, guys, I can say that is simple introduction to Java. You've seen how code is written. It's not the deep coding, but for introduction I can say this is what will propel you to understand more and more of these terminologies. So next class, or next course, sorry for using the word class, we are going to look at database, basic introduction to database, creation of CRUD, the create, read, update, delete APIs, and I'll be using Spring Boot. It's Java programming language, but a framework called Spring Boot. It's easy to do the APIs for the backend, or the backend coding. See, and it's structured in an MVC framework, the controllers, the models, services, and the views. The views normally will be the front end. Those doing the UI, they'll be consuming your APIs. So I hope this will give you a slight or a view understanding of Java programming language. It's not so much complex, it's very easy to understand. The moment you just know how to create or name classes, name variables, instantiate them, you will be good to go. And with that,